in English literature and linguistics. So before I start with our presenters for the first day of the conference, let me discuss about the organizing institutions, the Research Culture Society, School of Languages, Literature and Linguistics, Scientific Research Association, English Literature Club. Uh, Research Culture Society is a government registered scientific research organization. Society is working for a research community at a national and international level to impart quality and non-profitable services. This is also the sponsored host by RCS. School of Languages and Literature and Linguistics, EU, was established in 2001 and transforming literature and languages through teaching practices to bachelor's, master's, and doctoral research level learners, mainly Russian, Estonian, Belarusian, and Ukrainian languages are taught as the medium of study at the school. English is a less spoken language in the school, so it is a learning stage level, developing language in the school. Scientific Research Association is also one of the co-hosts for this international conference. It is working to promote scientific study research at international level, also coordinate with other research organizations for the educational research events. Lastly, we have English Literature Club. This club is a group on WhatsApp and Telegram apps, includes literature researchers and academicians for sharing literature, linguistics, and English language related information and knowledge. Before we start with the presenters, let me state the objective of this international conference. It is identifying the trends of literature, linguistics, and teaching languages, identifying various knowledge forms of literature and linguistics, and analyzing the trends of literature, linguistics, and teaching languages. So with that, we move on to the presentation session one for the first day of the conference, that is 17th of July today, 2021. Let me introduce to the chair session uh, members, Dr. Andi Asrifan, Faculty of Teachers Training and Educational Universitas Muhammadiyah Shidanar Rapang UMS Rapang, South Sulawesi, Indonesia. And next we have Dr. Mona Kelshikar, Principal, Icgtelll College of Commerce, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, India. And we have Purbasha Mondal, Assistant Professor of English, Saltora Netaji Centenary College, West Bengal, India. So with that, I call upon our first presenter of the session, Dr. Ruchi Tomar. And the title for her paper presentation is Gender Instability and Performativity in Carol Churchill's Cloud 9. Ma'am, please assert yourself if you're present.
Hello,
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. Please share your screen.
I have the paper.
Okay, yeah, you can start presenting.
The respect of others is from Green Lantern, Mr. Fantastic, and Wolverine. And in the conclusion, children character personal transformation may be the primary focus of most humanistic psychologists. Children character psychological process emphasis on creativity and wellness created a foundation for new approach towards human ideas. Okay, I think this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
University students
Are not
and
able
on their educational achievement and motivation. A case study in the north of Jordan.
so we are not able to see you. Could you please come to the screen? Like we are not able to see you. Instead, we could see the presentation.
So sorry.
Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah, that's okay now. You can continue with your presentation, sir.
Okay. Is it okay?
Yes, sir, you can continue with the presentation, sir. It's okay. It's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I will start with my abstract. This paper attempts to analyze the experiment of distance learning during COVID-19 pandemic in Jordan university students and its impact on their educational achievements and motivation. My sample was 140 informants who were chosen as a sample random sampling technique in Jordan University, different specializations and different ages. An online questionnaire was employed to the informants who were directed to fill it. Descriptive analysis was used for the data to conclude the results. The results indicated that the students faced difficulties in applying distance learning. The difficulties were found in the process of distance learning itself, the quality of internet, and the choosing of the suitable program. Distance learning, as we all know, is used by some of the learners, and it was optional because of the need of learning. But during the period of COVID-19, it was obligatory, and most of the learners around the world used it. Jordan is one of the countries which tried this experiment at the first time. The Jordan University students also tried this kind of learning like the others. It is a type of learning which reflected the viewpoint of Jordan University students who tried distance learning and its impact on their educational achievement and motivation. The sample, as I said previously, was 140 students who tried distance learning for the first time. Some of them tried it before. During this time of crisis, our students' rights of learning must be protected. Through education only, people can build skills and resources they need. The statement of the problem, distance learning is put to task when the learners can't reach their universities, colleges, and schools because of the natural disasters, living far away, and in the cases of pandemics such as COVID-19. When distance learning is used instead of direct learning, we hope it achieved its goals. Learners generally have been tried the distance learning and they hope it will achieve their academic goals. The objectives of this study, we have two objectives. The first one was formulated to identify the importance of distance learning during COVID-19 pandemic. The second one was to explore the impact of distance learning on the learner's educational achievements and motivation. The hypothesis of this study, distance learning is not important in comparison with direct learning. There is no relation between distance learning and learners' education achievements and motivation. And the third one, the gender has in achieving the academic goals through distance learning process. For the methodology of this study, distance learning came as an alternative of direct learning in some cases, such as the spread of COVID-19 pandemic around the world. Jordan is one of the countries which COVID-19 spread in. So there should be a plan to continue learning. The plan was activating distance learning. Distance learning is not new in Jordan, but applying it directly and all around the country, here is the challenge. A researcher may consult questionnaire for this task to guess, analyze, and predict the distance learning achieved its academic goals or not. The data was analyzed quantitatively so that the analysis retains objectivity. The location of the study, the area of the study was the universities in the north of Jordan. The informants were hailing from different cities to learn different specializations. For the sample population comprised for the Jordan University students studying at different universities in north of Jordan. The researcher considered such students studying in various departments A total of 140 informants were selected by a simple random sampling technique. Male and female population was considered equally for the sample selection. All of them were between 18 and 30 years old. The research instrument was an online questionnaire was designed for the informants in order to fulfill the study purposes, and the informants were given the questionnaire for distance learning and were asked to choose the appropriate answer according to their experiments. It was to draw the informant's attentions towards distance learning correctly. For the data analysis, for gender variable, the highest category female by frequency 96%, 70.1%, but the lowest category male by frequency 41%, 29.9%. For live variable, the highest category Mafraq by, this is a name of a city, by frequency 63%, 45%, but the lowest category, as you know, Ajlan also, it's a city by frequency 8%, 5.7%. Results and discussion. As a matter of fact, that there has been a lot of research work in the area of distance learning for the university students. School students all around the world who are learning different courses. However, this study is an addition to the already performed research with the following conclusions. The analysis of the data showed that distance learning is successfully achieved its goals and has strong relation with the age or gender of the informants. The analysis of the data showed that distance learning has an impact on the learner's educational achievements, and in the light of using an electronic questionnaire by the researcher, it showed that distance learning is very important during this period of COVID-19, and it keeps learners' rights of learning. For the suggestions and recommendations of this study has many applications like any other study. Distance learning is a new experience for a large segment of students, especially who are living in the third world countries. Generally, this way its cost in comparison with the direct learning. It also requires extraordinary equipment that may be unfeasible. The relation between learner and teacher is different. In case of direct learning, sometimes it's difficult for groups to use the same application for learning. In general, technology is a double-edged weapon in the time when it helps us to continue our learning. We find ourselves are far away socially. In the form of face-to-face lectures, teachers have become acquainted with conventional teaching methods, and so they refuse to consider any improvement. But in the middle of this crisis, we have no choice but to adjust to the dynamic situation and embrace the transition. Students who do not have access to all online technologies should not be overlooked, forgotten. So when classes take place online, they can miss out. The authors, Zaid Hawamda and Sania Khan, thank you for reciting, and I'm sorry for this enable.
Nice presentation, and the presenter is now open for the questions from the audience side. In the meanwhile, we move on to our next presenter, Vyas Sandhya Dushyant Kumar. The title for the presentation is A Burning, a Stark.
Thank you, that's all.
Burning a Stark Commentary on Indian Metropolis Assimilating Indian Dreams by Megha Majumdar. Is researcher
Yes,
still present?
yes, ma'am. I'm here only. I need the permission for my screen sharing.
Yeah. Please try again.
No, still not. Uh, yes, yes, I'm having. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. Just a minute.
You must start presenting.
Yeah, ma'am. Sure. Yes, good afternoon, one and all present here. I would like to be thankful at first for the organizers in order to make my presentation possible in this online, in this international conference. The topic which I have chosen is contemporary literature, and the subtopic that I have chosen for the presentation is A Burning, a Stark Commentary on Indian Metropolis, Assimilating Indian Dreams by Megha Majumdar. Uh, yes. Here is the content that I have chosen. About the author, Megha Majumdar. Introduction, features of modern Indian fictions by new generation writers. Focus point in the present research, a burning, a stark commentary on Indian metropolis, showing Indian dreams to rise, and conclusion. Firstly, I would like to be looking about the author itself. Megha Majumdar is an Indian novelist who lives in New York City, and Majumdar was born in Kolkata, India. In 2006, she moved to the United States to study social anthropology at Harvard University. Basically, if I talk about her first debut novel, Burning, was released in 2020 during the pandemic situation, and it has received positive reviews. It became a New York Times bestseller. Majumdar's writing style has been compared to that of the Chumpa Lahiri and Ya Gyasi. At the time of her novel's publication, Majumdar worked as an editor at Catapult Books in New York City. A Burning was shortlisted for the 2021 Andrew Carnegie Medal for Fiction. Next, we have the introduction. So, the Indian English novels have proved their mark in the global literary scenario by the manner in which the writers have captured the interest and imagination of the reader through poignant portrayals of various themes such as East and West conflicts, multiculturalism, social realism, gender issues, comic aspect of human nature, ecological concerns, magic realism, diaspora writing, and many others. Some other dominant themes are also there: political, national themes, social realism, Indian diaspora, immigration, and others, feminism, and as well as women empowerment and modern themes. Focusing on the features of modern Indian fictions by new generation writers. So these writers have usually concentrated on the aspects of modern Indian, especially its metropolitan lifestyle and their outcomes on social, political, and cultural lives of the people or groups of different ethnicity. Illustrations of Indian metropolis like Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, and others are become the prominent interest in Indian English writings by new generation authors like Arvind Adiga, Icgtelll, Amit Chaudhary, Suketu Mehta, and many others. Focus point in this present research paper. So the present novel encompasses the components of literature of marginalized nurturing big dreams in a country heading towards extremism, portraying the lives of three different individuals which are interrelated with each other. Majumdar has shown how every individual is struggling with their own quest of power, fame, and self determination. Usually, this kind of literatures are being categorized under the term urban fiction or street literature or street fictions. And the tone of urban fiction is usually dark, focusing on the underside or the darker side of the city living. Moving on to the main point, a burning, a stark commentary on Indian metropolis showing Indian dream at rise. The New York Times review has described the masterpiece in the following words: a brazen act of terrorism in an Indian metropolis sets the plot of this propulsive debut novel in motion and lands an innocent young bystander in jail. With impressive assurance and insight, Majumdar unfolds a timeless story about the ways power is wielded to manipulate and crush the powerless. This novel portraying the life of the three individual characters, Jeevan, a Muslim girl, Lovely, a Hijra, a transgender, and Pity Sir, a school teacher. The novel is a stark commentary on the present decaying state of India with its darker sides. The researcher has tried to express and evaluate the themes of modern realistic fictions, which recalls the concept of American dream. Bajekal writes in her review about the book as all three characters seek a way to rise above their circumstances, but Majumdar asks at what cost? Jivan, the central character, belongs to marginalized group. She has struggled a lot in her life for her father's treatment, medication, education, issues related to municipality system, and many others. Her life turned out into hell just by a single comment on social media platform, that is Facebook, about the recent terrorist attack happened in a train near at the station. This phenomena becomes the reason of her tragedy. As she commented, if the police didn't help ordinary people like you and me, if the police watch them die, doesn't that mean that the government is also a terrorist? Here, the protagonist is showing her anger against government, against the system. She's also criticizing the police force who have been there for us, helping us. And she also criticizes the polity and politicians. I would like to quote one of the reviewers' opinion here. Ravi Agarwal is of the opinion a growing number of citizens, like the fictional Jivan, have been arrested or jailed for posting critical comments on their leaders, political leaders. Next, I would like to focus on the point which is described in the novel, youth and job culture. Jivan is a self-determinant. Jivan is a girl who is self-made on her feet. Jivan's job culture has also dragged her in bad habits, as well as that represents the current modern culture in youth. As she commits, everyone around me had bad habits. We were earning out our money. Why should we not indulge? I started smoking cigarettes, costly cigarettes, branded signals, which I bought with pride and lit up from a slow burning rope dangling from a corner of the shop. I held each cigarette between my fingers like a film star. Role of Poles media and journalism is also emphatically portrayed by the author. Jivan was misunderstood, and the description proves her actual association with terrorist group when she was being assessed by one of the journalists named Purnendu. The headline, her statement when it was taken by Purnendu, the headline of that article in a newspaper titled as I threw bombs at the police, a terrorist tells her life story. Social media is also being criticized in this novel in a different way that smartphone has become the cheapest commodity of the boon of the new Indian dream and a tool for empowering its people in getting employment as well as to be a global citizen. Factors like cheap technology, slow and corrupt justice system, and Indian dream have become the reason for Jeevan's downfall. Next character is Lovely, a transgender, a Hijra. She is also complex character. She was sharing good bond with friendship, bond of friendship with Jeevan. However, when it comes to fulfilling her dreams, she chooses her aspirations above her friendship. Lovely was being convinced by Arjunima, the leader of them all, to choose one out of the two, her bright career or the futile friendship with Jeevan. Saloni Khan, the producer, requested Lovely to take back her testimony for Jeevan as they don't want to be trapped in false or wrong publicity about their drama and its characters. So Saloni advised her, one concern that my team has is we want to avoid bad publicity, your testimony for terrorists. And Lovely's answer to this is the significant stroke. Lovely says, don't worry, she was my neighbor, but I'm understanding now that maybe I was never really knowing who she was. Pity Sir, next character, who is a selfish teacher and an absolute corrupt political leader. Uh, an incident occurred with Pity Sir during the political campaign. A riot between Hindu Muslim is cleverly portrayed by Majumdar. For this massacre or anarchy, Bimla Pal, the leader of Jan Kalyan Party, her reaction is truly an evidence of political, practical, selfish thinking of leaders. As Bimla Pal says, in politics, you will see sometimes it feels that you are in charge of everything and everyone, but we can only guide them, inspire them. At the end of the day, they are puppets. They are puppets? No. So, what can we do if they raise their hand? if they decide to beat someone, if they feel angry. Pity sir, the only other option in favor of Jeevan's case has also changed his statement in temptation of power and post of education secretary. Pity sir thinks that he has to get his hands on Jeevan's mercy petition and adds to it his recommendation as a member of the new government that the petition be denied. The court decision, the death penalty, ought to be carried out swiftly and with minimal burden to the taxpayer. This is my conclusion. Concept of Indian dream has been beautifully portrayed in this particular novel that is quite similar with American dream concepts, and that is about to choose and that is about to make choices about the success even by choosing the wrong path and at the cost of another person's suffering. Struggles of marginalized has been beautifully portrayed in this particular book. Commentary, it is the commentary on contemporary quest of every human being for fame and to lead an affluent lifestyle for which the person gets ready even to lie, make corruptions and a fleck of false reputation. I would like to just conclude this particular point. The story is a complete interplay of choices made by an individual in deciding their fate, and circumstances are the results stimulated from the choices made by them all. This is the references from where I have taken some of the reviews, and thank you so much for hearing me.
Thank you, ma'am. Presenter is now open for any question from the audience side. With that, we move on to our next presenter, Brishti Mukherjee, and the title for the paper presentation for her is She Should Have Been a Boy, Revisiting Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart Through the Lens of Feminism. Please assert yourself if you are there.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. You have got PowerPoint presentation to share?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Last presenters, Dr. Sandhya, you need to submit your PowerPoint presentation through email on the conference mail ID. Those who are presenting PowerPoint presentation file, they all are need to submit PPT file by today evening on the conference mail ID.
Okay, sir. Okay. Ma'am, is my screen visible?
Yes, you can directly start with your presentation.
Okay, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Brishti Mukherjee. First of all, I would like to thank all the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present my paper here. The title of my paper is She Should Have Been a Boy, Revisiting Things Fall Apart Through the Lens of Feminism. Let's start with a brief introduction. Chinua Achebe, the father of African novel, started his writing career as a novelist with Things Fall Apart. The title is aptly taken from W.B. Yeats's poem, The Second Coming. This novel is often seen as a response to Joseph Conrad's novel, Heart of Darkness, through the faithful description of Igbo society. As a post-colonial novel, Things Fall Apart deals with the center, Okonkwo, leader of Umuofia, and his utmost effort to preserve the unity of the clan and his ultimate failure. Though apparently it appears as a tragedy as Okonkwo commits suicide at the end, it is a story of conflict between native tradition and the arrival of Christianity. Okonkwo is the epitome of masculinity, and through his eyes, we can interestingly interpret the position of women in Igbo society. Now we will discuss the relationship between Okonkwo and his wives. Okonkwo is a strong masculine figure who is at the center of Umuofian society. The Igbo society is intensely patriarchal. In that society, to be a male means possessing aggressiveness, violence, power, dominance, strength, well-built physique, etc. For Okonkwo, to be a male also means to become successful in life, earn titles, produce abundance of youngs, and live proudly with a family of many wives and children. Conversely, therefore, to become a woman means to remain angel in the house, to be submissive, timid, emotional, managing households, obeying husband's commands silently, and produce male child. For Okonkwo, weakness, unsuccessfulness, and emotional. These are the three major traits of becoming effeminate, which is called Agbala. From the very beginning of the novel, we find that Okonkwo beats his wives every now and then. This beating is a tool to tame the women folk. Black women are doubly marginalized. Achebe explains Okonkwo's psychological nuances in this way. I am quoting, "Perhaps down his heart, Okonkwo was not a cruel man, but his whole life was dominated by fear, the fear of failure and of weakness," unquote. Okonkwo's second wife, Equifi, presents herself as a powerful feminine force against Okonkwo's maniac masculinity. She takes the risk of following Chielo at night when Ezinma is taken away by the priestess. Okonkwo silently follows her but does not object to her feminine pursuit. Rather, he supports her to find out Ezinma and almost allows her to transgress the boundary of gender roles. Another less discussed character is Okonkwo's third wife, Oziulu. From the opening chapters, we know that Okonkwo has divided equally the household duties among 3 wives. And he becomes very angry when he comes to know that Oziulu has gone to plait her hair instead of making meals. Here, Okonkwo's sternest nature comes out, who believes in the stereotype that women have to sacrifice her own likings and wishes after marriage and should only fulfill her husband's desires. Another interesting fact is the relationship between Okonkwo and Ezinma. Ezinma is the most favorite child of Okonkwo, and her birth precedes a traumatic, sad story. Equifi has delivered 10 children and 9 of them died in infancy. Her children are considered as Ogbanji, and after a lot of turmoil, only Ezinma has survived. At the beginning of the novel, Okonkwo tries Ezinma to teach gender roles, maybe out of the frustration that she is a girl. That is a very peculiar relationship between a father and a daughter, where the father loves his daughter, but at the same time regrets that she is a girl, not a boy, because she has the right masculine spirit. But in Igbo society, the eldest son is considered as the proper heir or future leader, not the eldest daughter. Where is Okonkwo's mother? This is a very crucial question in the novel. Throughout the novel, Okonkwo's mother is dead and she is significantly anonymous. There are some passing references to Okonkwo's mother when he remembers her tales of mosquito and ears. The brief reference to Okonkwo's mother helps Achebe to portray our hero as violent, maniac, and masculine. Interestingly, he refers to Umofia as fatherland and Mbanta as motherland, where he has to go for an exile. Mother's affection acts like a soothing balm when life is full of problems and despair. In this light, we can say that our motherless mythic hero faces trouble in his fatherland Umofia. That is why he comes to his motherland Mbanta for peace and comfort. Women in Igbo culture. Motherhood is highly valued in Umofia, and in Umofian society, we have goddesses like Agbala, Chielo, and Annie. Very interestingly, yam is a masculine crop, but its production depends on the blessings of goddess Annie. Okonkwo's sensitivity and vulnerability to insult drives him to deliberately subvert feminine authority. And ultimately, he is punished when he commits suicide, and nobody is willing to touch his body. In the conclusion, we can say that critics often consider that the main reason for Okonkwo's failure is the imbalance between masculinity and femininity. And Chinua Achebe uses this opposition of masculinity and femininity to encapsulate the conflict between British and Igbo society. Thank you.
Research scholar at Icgtelll Muslim University. The title of my research paper is Investigating the Impact of Educational Background on Yemeni Doctoral Students' Realization of the Speech Act of Request, a case study at Icgtelll Muslim University. This presentation content: introduction, classification, types of request strategies, statement of the problem, research questions, methodology, data analysis, results, conclusion. In the introduction, I have provide definitions of request. Searle defined the request act as attempts by the speaker to get the hearer to do something. Baker refers to request as an utterance that is intended to indicate the speaker's desire to regulate the behavior of the listener. That is, to get the listener to do something. Classification of request strategies. Blumkolka and Olstein identified 9 types of strategies, of request strategies. These 9 strategies are combined under 3 major levels of directness: direct request strategies, conventional indirect strategies, and non-conventional indirect strategies or hints. These types of request strategies. In direct strategies, we have around 6: mood derivable, performatives, hedge performatives, obligation statements, want statements. In conventional indirect strategies, we have 2 types: query preparatory and suggestive formulas. In non-conventional indirect strategies, we have strong hints and mild hints. Statement of the problem. Most Yemeni doctoral students in India, especially the non-English majors, confront communication problems in English language. Most Yemeni students are incompetent in pragmatics in general and in social pragmatics in particular. Most Yemeni students do not take into consideration the social power and social distance of the hearer while making requests. Research questions. The first research question is: what types of strategies and modifications do Yemeni doctoral students of arts and non-arts groups use when they realize the English speech act of request? The second question: do the social power and the social distance of the hearer have an impact on Yemeni doctoral student realization of the English speech act of request? The third research question: what are the semantic formulas most frequently used by Yemeni doctoral students when they realize the speech act of request? In the methodology, I have the sample of the study here. Yemeni doctoral students, we have the first group, arts group. The second group is non-arts group. Each group contains 20 students. Design and instruments of the study. The study adopted a quantitative and qualitative method design, as you can see here in the figures. Instruments of the study: discourse completion test. The second method is multiple choice questionnaire. Description of the discourse completion test situation. The first situation is with chairman, asking chairman for a recommendation letter. Manager, asking a manager for a 1-day leave. Gentleman, asking a gentleman for directions at airport. Scholar, asking a senior scholar to proofread a thesis. Classmate, asking a new classmate for help. And with a friend, asking a close friend to take a photo. Here you can see the power of the speaker, and here the distance. Description of the multiple choice questionnaire. The same situations of multiple choice questionnaire are the same of the discourse completion test. Each situation is followed by 4 multiple choices. 3 choices represent the 3 types of requests, and 1 requires the student to refrain from performing the request. Data analysis. We have 2 questionnaires, discourse completion test. The results were interpreted and quantified. Frequency distribution and the percentage were calculated. The same for multiple choice questionnaire. Frequency distribution and the percentage were calculated. Here we have the results. Frequency distribution of situation 1, 2, and 3. I will highlight here the use of direct requests, which are quite unacceptable in English-speaking situations. You can see here in arts group, in the first situation, nobody used direct request, while 3 of non-arts used direct request. In the second situation, as you can see here, arts didn't use direct request, while 4 students used direct request of non-arts. In the third situation, also 5 of non-arts used direct, while none of arts used Conventional indirect strategies, as you can see, most students use conventional indirect strategies, which are universal. In strong hints, here are used always by professional speakers. You can see only art students. 4 students use mild hints, 3 students of arts, and 2 students of art. Now 1 of non-arts use strong hints in requests. Frequency distribution of situation 4, 5, and 6. As you can see also here in direct request, only 1 student used direct request of arts in the 4th situation, while we see here 5 students, 1 also in the 5th situation of arts, While we see here 5 students of non-arts who use direct request, in the last situation, arts, 2 of arts, while 8 of non-arts use direct request. Frequency distribution of arts and non-arts in multiple choice questionnaire. Here you can see here forgo. I have used this the choice forgo or refraining or abstention from making the request due to the impact of the social bar and social distance. Here, arts students were more aware of the social bar and social distance, so 5 students refrained from making the request. You can see only 1 of non-arts, 5 or 4 of arts, only 1 of non-arts, 3 of arts, and no one here, 2 of arts, and no one here. As you can see with the classmate, 3 of arts, and only 1 here. With a friend, nobody. Conclusion. Art students were more aware of the social bar and social distance of the addressing than non-art students. Students of arts varied the use of requests according to the social status of the hearers. Non-art students were less mindful of the social bar and social distance of the hearer because they sometimes use the same request strategies with every hearer. Art students tended to forego or use more indirect requests in multiple choice questionnaire than non-art students. This indicates the arts students' high awareness of the impact of social power and social distance of the hearer. Conventional indirect request strategies were most frequently used by the 2 groups. Non-art students used more direct strategies and even with high dominant hearers. Art students use modification with the head act more than non-art students. The semantic formulas most frequently used by the 2 groups were request reason, explanation request, apology request. Non-art students were more influenced by the linguistic and the cultural background, by Arab linguistic and the cultural background when they formed the request strategies. They used more direct requests in situations that involved politeness. The educational background has an effect on a student's formation of the request strategies. Art students whose educational background is English performed request acts better than non-art students whose educational background is partly English. The references. Thank you for your attention.
Well, the presenter is now open for the questions from the audience side. The presenters are requested to be ready with their PPT or a paper file, whichever they want to present with, in the background of their laptop, PC, whatever, so that when it's their turn for presentation, they're actually ready with their point. So with that, I call upon our next presenter, exploring Jean Baudrillard's theory of hyperreality in white noise by Donatello. Do you have any PPT, Nafia Akhtar?
I'll be presenting the paper.
Yes.
Is it visible?
Okay, yeah, yes, you can continue with your presentation.
All right. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nafia Akhtar, and I'm a PhD research scholar in the Department of English, Lovely Professional University. So the present paper entitled Exploring Jan Baudrillard's Theory of Hyperreality in White Noise by Don DeLillo is a qualitative research work through the lens of hyperreality by Jan Baudrillard in order to study the postmodern American society that is entangled in the hyperreality as represented through the works of Don DeLillo. Hyperreality, as Baudrillard says, a shift from the real to a falsified image. Baudrillard is of the view that hyperreality is a result of the overpowering effect of technology on the society, where media molds and filters what is there in the real world and is substituted by the mediated real called hyperreal. The society depicted in the works of Don DeLillo is so entrenched in the media simulacrum that it becomes impossible to know whether the characters are performing according to the media codes or still have control of their lives, as the margins between the media simulacra and reality become vague. White Noise is the magnum opus of DeLillo, which gives us the apt description of the postmodern society and how media is at the central position controlling every means of activities by critically analyzing it through the lens of postmodern concept of hyperreality. Jan Baudrillard is one of the chief intellectuals of the postmodernism. He's a keen critique of contemporary society, thought, and culture. He claims that society has lost its connection with the real world and is highly reliable in models. According to him, we are so much interested in arranging and accumulating signs of good living that we can no longer relate to each other in human terms. He retorts, in the most modern society, the representation of reality that he calls simulacra has replaced reality. Baudrillard displays a world in which the advancements in communication and technology has robbed the cultural landscape of human existence. Simply, hyperreality refers to the existence of something that does not have the reality. Hyperreality manifests itself in different ways, from mass media such as movies or televisions to the supermarket culture of consumerism. For Baudrillard, hyperreality is a result of the technologically rich society where media largely filters and shapes what we see in the reality and is substituted by the mediated real hyperreal. Baudrillard retorts, I quote, "It is TV that is true, it is TV that renders true," unquote. Hyperreality in the white noise. Delillo's novels are overloaded with the postmodern elements in a very overt way. Woven intricately, Delillo's novels are interlaced in a web of never-ending relations that keep the plots open-ended and no definite conclusions. In White Noise, Jack Gladney, the protagonist, repeatedly bridges arbitrary events, facts, instances, and dates in order to make sense of and bind all the events in a cohesive manner. Along with that, most of the events are driven by media codes, images, consumer consumption, etc., that overhauls the postmodern American society in every which way possible. White Noise is focused on a middle-class American family where all the characters are common human beings without any heroic traits. Television and media is at the core of the novel, where the characters decide almost everything that's being conveyed through media. There is constant fear of death that the characters go through. The other event in the novel is mysterious and toxic medicine to cure the fear of death. According to Mark Conray, the author of From Tombstone to Tabloid, authority figure in White Noise, this illustrates, I quote, what one could call Delillo's novel of consumption, that people expend money in direct proportion to their fear of death or dishonor, unquote. The contemporary society is completely entrenched in media simulacrum that it becomes impossible to distinguish between real and hyperreal. Technology has edited the human relationship. Murray, one of the characters, remarks, "This is the whole point of technology. It creates an appetite for immortality. On the one hand, it threatens universal extinction on the other. Technology is lust removed from nature," unquote. The entire family is engaged in technology so much that it becomes hard to decode whether the characters are acting according to media codes or by their own instincts. It is the television only that brings the whole family together and is extensively used by all the members of family. Or we can say that it has been made as a tradition of the family, like many of the other American families. Babbitt has made a Friday ritual for whole family to watch television for a healthy entertainment purpose. Television acts as a medium of information for the entire family, and they act accordingly. They get the detailed information about the upcoming toxic events and great disasters through television. Jack Gladney, the protagonist, often hears different kinds of voices in the head, which nobody else in his family understands, and is termed as white noise. The members of the Jack's family react differently to different programs such as music, news, as well as sports. White noise is a world of signs, images, and television-centered society where everything seems to be controlled by media, which acts as a main source of information. Simulacra overtakes reality, constituting a sphere of hyperreality on which day-to-day lives of the characters are based. Even the toxic event is controlled by media reports. The means through which the Gladney's family experiences a sense of familiar relationship comes through their contact with the media. Media can be considered as an important element of white noise, which is ever prevalent, including television, supermarkets, radio, etc. Jack Gladney wonders, I quote, "The tabloid future with its mechanism of a hopeful twist to apocalyptic events was perhaps not so very remote from our own immediate experience. Out of some persistent sense of large-scale ruin, we kept inventing hope," unquote. The characters of white noise populate a world where the media colonizes subjectivity. Signs are detached from their reference. Technology and science make the composite human being, and death is under threat for being the last vestige of modernist reality. While men perpetually scan the small town of Blacksmith for toxic chemicals, Gladys continue to absorb trivial knowledge from various conduits, recycling the technobabble and contributing to the white noise of postmodern society. Delillo has written a novel where the main protagonist tenaciously clings to a more modernist frame of perspective as he's confronted with the postmodernist reality, and in doing so offers the reader sublime moments that disturb their understanding of the world in which they themselves live. Conclusion. The white noise presents a world where technology colonizes the subjectivity and characters are ever entangled in the web of science, codes, consumerism, as well as media. The media-dominated postmodern world exposes a man to a materialistic world that is filled with anxiety, fear, and identity crisis, along with it that it uproots us from reality. The DeLillo's portrayal of American culture depicts the period and spot where the individual is not a part of the cultural progressive system and is left alone to manage the mess of life. In DeLillo's reality, even the essential social gatherings which have been a part of human life since the start of the current progress have disintegrated to where they presently don't offer the help, care, warmth, certification, and reason for self-improvement and advancement. Thank you.
A nice presentation by Nafia Akhtar on the concept of white noise. The presenter is now open for the question.
First of all, I thank Research Culture Society for organizing such an international conference and giving me the chance to share my research paper entitled Online Learning Experiences of Undergraduate International Students at AMU During COVID-19 Pandemic, Students' Perspective. This is the outline of my paper or presentation. First, introduction, research question and objective, literature review, methodology, findings and analysis, conclusions, recommendation, and implication. First, introduction. The COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc on the entire. One second. The entire world, impacting nearly every facet of human life and causing a prolonged shutdown of academic and educational institutions throughout the world. Offline classrooms have been transferred into online to maintain sustainability of education for students, creating a new era of learning experience for students in which courses, classes, other learning opportunities are performed virtually. Consequently, foreign students coming from developing countries experience a perilous shift towards unexpected and unfamiliar form of learning in tertiary education. Now we'll come to research questions and objectives. The study aimed at investigating international students' experience of learning of online learning during COVID-19 pandemic at Icgtelll Muslim University. The research question is the study tries to answer the following question: what are the online learning experiences of international students at AMU during COVID-19 pandemic? Literature review. Online learning during COVID-19 pandemic. Ali defines online learning as the use of internet to access materials, to interact with the content, instructor, and other learners, and to obtain support during the learning process in order to acquire knowledge, to construct personal meaning, and to grow from learning experiences. During the pandemic, online learning was the greatest option for continuous learning, especially in tertiary education. Kamal et al. Found that online learning would not be a hindrance but blessing towards academic excellence in the face of a calamity like COVID-19 pandemic. Sandy Biev stated that it is always necessary to note that information technologies and online learning will not be able to completely replace traditional form of education, ousting the teacher from education. Online teaching context and learning outcomes. Josie et al. Reported that instructional achievement of online learning is debatable because it causes absence of face-to-face relationship among learners and instructors. Feldman stated that 2020 stated that pandemic-related anxiety will have negative effects on students' academic performance, and the larger part of instructors were not effectively ready to deliver high-quality instruction remotely. Adnan and Anwar 2020 concluded that educational institutions have to design appropriate and effective content, arrange and an effective delivery system, and provide digital literacy training to their current faculty so better learning outcomes can be achieved. Motivation and engagement in online learning. Profi 2020 motivation stated that motivation is defined as a theoretical construct to explain the initiation, direction, intensity, persistence, and quality of behavior, especially goal-directed behavior. Motivation is the engine of learning. This is Paris and Turner to 1994. Motivation affects engagement in what, how, and when of learners. This is Shank and Usher. Darney's 2020 suggests the concept of motivation is closely associated with engagement, and motivation must be ensured in order to achieve student achievement. Ozan and Kokadier found that the experience of flow and effective commitment with the online educational setting with games sufficiently influence the participants' motivation. Now we'll come to methodology. The study employed semi-structured interviews to investigate the international students' online learning experiences at the AMU during COVID-19 pandemic. Interviews have been conducted through the phone. After getting the interviews consent, interviews have been recorded and transcribed thematically analyzed. Each interview lasts 10 to 15 minutes. The target participants have been 7 international students from Yemen, Egypt, and Jordan. Interviewees' educational background is that their education before university has been traditional face-to-face classes in their home countries. Their ages range between 20 and 25 years old. 3 of the interviewees are currently studying in engineering and applied sciences majors, whereas 4 are studying in humanities and social sciences. Interviewees have the ability to use access internet and have the literacy with computers and technological devices. Interviews, finding, and analysis. Interviews were audio recorded and transcribed. Interviews have been thematically analyzed, and segments relevant to students' online learning experiences have been recorded. The emerging patterns led to the interpretation and identification of several themes, including motivation, engagement, teaching context, and learning outcome. For motivation and engagement, finding themes: students' demotivation in online learning, students' non-engagement in online classes, students' predilection towards offline classes. Excerpts: face-to-face classes is encouraging to me. In online classes, I feel demotivated to participate in any class. In online study, classes are only recorded, which is uninteresting for me. In offline, when you attend classes and see the teachers face-to-face, you feel the value of study. At 90 and 80% of my study depends on offline classes. I prefer offline classes. Interview finding regarding the teaching context and findings themes. Students semi-content with the teaching context, that's an instruction use of pedagogy. Students contentment with their learning outcomes. Now we'll come to conclusion and recommendation. The study concludes that international students at AMU demonstrated a comparative level of dissatisfaction with online learning experiences in terms of motivation and engagement, and somehow contentment in terms of teaching context and learning outcome. The study claims that undergraduate international students at AMU have predilection towards offline classes. The study recommends using innovative online instructional methods and developing interactive instructional activities to promote students' motivation and engagement. The study implications include that the students' satisfaction with their learning, teaching context, and learning outcomes may not be indicative of online learning experiences, but rather of an escape of their pressure and accountability of offline study. Further research is needed to support this implication. Thank you. And sorry for exceeding the time.
Nice presentation by Abdul Aziz Ghalib Al-Qari. And then we move on to our next and the last presenter of this session, Jwala Prasad. And the title for the presentation is Elements of Realism in the Writings of Anton Chekhov. a special study on Uncle Banya. You can share your screen if you have a PPT presentation or a paper.
The paper presentation, ma'am.
Yes, and you can share and start presenting directly.
A very good, a very good afternoon to you all. My heartiest thanks to Honorable Chairperson and the members of committees, organizing committee. I am Jwala Prasad, research scholar of Jayaprakash University, Chhapra, under supervision of Dr. Aman Riaz. The topic of my presentation is elements of realism in the writings of Anton Chekhov, a special study on Uncle Banya. As we know that Uncle Banya is a very fine short stories by Anton Chekhov. Anton Chekhov was born on in the old black spots Tagarong on January 1780. He was a Russian short story writer, playwright, and a physician, considered to be a greatest short story writer in the history of world literature. His career as a dramatist produced 4 classical, and his best short stories are held in the highest streams by writers and critics. Anton Chekhov participates as a doctor through most of his literary career. His first story appears in Moscow paper in 1880. In 1884, he took his degrees as doctor of medicine and decided to practice although his writings had by now taken on the professional character. His plays are The Seagull, The Swan Song, The Demon, The Three Sisters, Uncle Banyas, and the last play, The Cherry Orchard. Besides, Chekhov also wrote short stories. His first collection of short stories in 1887. He was dead on 1904, become of heart attack in the Baden, Germany. He was buried in the cemetery of Novkis in Moscow. Uncle Banya's short stories very interesting to analyze. There are some aspects that make this story very interesting to analyze. First, the story is written by Chekhov, a famous playwright. Second, the Uncle Banya's plays is unique among the Chekhov's major plays because it is essentially the existing rework of his own plays published in decade earlier. Third, because of the play had previous a small run in provincial theater in 1898. And the last is Uncle Banya play is a simple life story so that it makes the reader understand in the inner meaning of the story. The initial reviews were horrible. It pointed to defects in the both in plays and acting as the starting and the acting improved over successive performance. However, as the public understood its inner meaning and norms of feelings, the review impact Uncle Banyas become a permanent picture, the Moscow Art Theater. Uncle Banya is a drama written by the great Russian writer Chekhov. The publication of it was in 1897, and it also got chance to get permitted in the reputed Moscow Art Theater. The being from a garden in the family, yes, artist the Martin discussed how he feels uninterested in his existence of the country doctor. Banya enters yawing from John, and 3 grumble about how all these occupations has been disturbed. Therefore, the professor and his wife Helena arrived as they speak. Strivok, Helena, Sonia, and Telegin return from strolls. Banya calls the professor a learned old director disapproving him for his arrogant and completeness of his actings. Banya's mother Maria Vasilis, who adores Seribikov, objects to her son's projectives. Banya also acclaimed the professor's wife Helena for the loneliness argument that faithfulness and to an old man like Serikov denotes quality childhood and feelings, a weak stops of energy. Stops is confirmed to leave to join a point and not before giving a speech on the perfection of trees. A subject is very favor about act I close with Helena becoming influenced as Banyas declares his love for her. Seribikov dining from several days later. It is late night at night before going to bed. Seribikov protects of being discomfort and of old age. Arrives having been sent by Sonia, but the professor littles to see after Seribikov is asleep. Helena and Vanya talks. She speaks of the dissonance of the house, and Vanya says of ruined faith. He is sensible of the visible his youth, and he links his unanswered love for Helena and the disturbance of the life. Helena doesn't listen alone. Vanya queries why he didn't fell in love with Helena when he first met her 10 years before. Then it would have been linked for the two or have married and had happy life together. At that time, Banyas threw out Samirikov and loved him. Now lost lives and gone his life feels before. As Banya agonizes over his past, stops reach on his rose for drink and therefore two dialogues, Sonia's theaters, Banyas for his drinking and replies practically to his echo and uselessness. A maid's life pointing out that only work is truly satisfying outside a gale of congresting and adverse. The dew overcomes love during which is developed clear that Sonia is in love with her doctor, and I'm going to conclude in
The participants will receive the feedback form link after the conference valedictory session. And with that, I thank you all, and we're gonna join back with the presentation session in the second half at sharply at 3 o'clock. So be ready with the PPT presentation. Is on for the short break. Return again. Thank you.